Have you ever been in a situation where a woman acts distant, cold, or even slightly annoyed by your presence, yet you can't shake the feeling that something else is happening under the surface? For most men, this is the ultimate stop sign. When they encounter this icy demeanor, their brain immediately registers it as a total lack of interest. They assume they've been rejected, and they respond in one of two ways. They either retreat with a bruised ego, or they descend into chaser mode, desperately trying to win back a favor they never actually lost. Both of these reactions are based on a fundamental misunderstanding of how high-stakes attraction actually works. To navigate this successfully, you have to understand a core psychological truth. Indifference is quiet. If a woman truly does not care about you, she won't bother building a wall of coldness or acting annoyed. True indifference is polite, neutral, and, above all, entirely predictable. She will treat you like a stranger at a grocery store, calmly and without any emotional charge. When there is no spark, there is no need for a defense mechanism. She has no reason to hide her feelings because there are no feelings to hide. However, when a woman is fighting her emotions, her behavior becomes erratic and inconsistent. This coldness isn't a sign of dislike. It is a defensive fortress she has built specifically because the intensity of her attraction is starting to scare her. She might feel a loss of control or a fear of being vulnerable, so she overcompensates by acting uninterested to regain her footing. This creates a hot and cold cycle that feels like a maze to most men, but it is actually the hallmark of an internal struggle. Today, we are going to look past the surface and break down the 7 powerful signs that her mixed signals are actually a battle she is currently losing against her own heart. The first indicator of a hidden attraction isn't found in what she says, but in where she directs her attention. This begins with a phenomenon called the stolen glance. When a woman is struggling with intense feelings for you, holding steady, confident eye contact feels far too exposing. It's as if you could look right through her and see her secrets. Because she feels vulnerable, she will reflexively look away the very second your eyes meet hers. However, the real tell happens when you break your gaze. If you turn away to check your phone or talk to someone else, her eyes will immediately drift back to you. She is drawn to observe you when she thinks it's safe, creating a loop of looking and retreating that signals a deep curiosity mixed with a genuine fear of being found out. This internal tension is impossible to contain indefinitely, and it eventually leaks into her physical movements through subconscious mirroring. This is a biological drive where her brain attempts to synchronize with yours to build rapport, even if her conscious mind is trying to remain cool and detached. Pay close attention to the timing of her actions. If you lean back in your chair and she follows suit a few seconds later, or if you take a sip of your drink and she instinctively reaches for hers, her nervous system is essentially saying, "I am with you," while her words say, "I don't care." This mimicry is one of the most honest forms of human connection because it happens entirely without her permission or awareness. Beyond mirroring, you must watch for the preening response, which is a high-level physiological reaction to your presence. When you step into her personal space, her body's fight-or-flight system, the sympathetic nervous system, kicks into gear. This causes subtle shifts that she cannot easily hide. Her breathing might become slightly shallower, or she might begin nervously fixing her hair, adjusting her jewelry, or smoothing out her clothes. These are instinctive grooming behaviors meant to ensure she looks her best in front of a high-value partner. These micro-gestures prove that her body is reacting to the chemistry between you long before her mind has decided whether or not to admit it. One of the most misunderstood indicators of attraction is emotional defensiveness. Many men encounter a woman who seems prickly, easily annoyed, or overly sensitive to harmless jokes, and immediately assume she dislikes them. In reality, the opposite is often true. If she were truly indifferent, your words wouldn't have the power to move the needle on her mood at all. She is acting defensive because you have become a threat to her emotional composure. She is struggling to maintain her cool exterior, and that internal friction leaks out as a sharp or strong reaction. Always remember the golden rule of attraction. Emotional investment always precedes an emotional reaction. If she is reacting, she is invested. Because being direct feels too vulnerable, she will often test the waters using playful sarcasm. This is her psychological safety net. By teasing you, calling you out on small things, or issuing lighthearted challenges, she is able to create a high-tension, high-energy dynamic without actually having to admit she finds you attractive. It allows her to flirt while maintaining plausible deniability. If things get too serious, she can just claim she was just joking. It is a low-risk way for her to poke at the chemistry between you to see how you handle it and to gauge your level of confidence in return. You will see this defensive behavior peak when other women enter the picture, manifesting as a state of being hyper unbothered. When you interact with someone else, she might suddenly pull out her phone, look away, or pretend you don't even exist. This is a classic smokescreen. While she is pretending to be preoccupied, her body language will tell a different story. She will become uncharacteristically quiet. Her posture may stiffen, and she will be hyper aware of your movements. She is watching from the corner of her eye, not because she is bored, but because she is gauging your interest in others to determine where she fits in your social hierarchy and how much danger her feelings are in. When it comes to digital communication, a woman who is fighting her feelings often abandons natural conversation flow in favor of calculated availability. To the average man, a long delay between texts looks like a lack of interest, but the psychology behind it is often much more complex. If she truly didn't care about you, she would treat your messages with total indifference. She'd reply whenever she happened to see them, or simply forget about them entirely. But when she is attracted to you and trying to hide it, the timing of her response becomes a tactical decision. She will purposefully wait to reply, even if she saw the message the second it arrived, because she is terrified of appearing too easy or desperate. By controlling the clock, she is trying to maintain a sense of mystery and protect her emotional leverage. This behavior is rooted in a desire to protect her emotional value. In her mind, being too available is a position of weakness. She feels that if she shows her hand too early, she loses the game of attraction. This internal pressure is what creates the hot and cold loop that leaves so many men feeling confused and frustrated. One day, she might be incredibly engaging, warm, and responsive because her feelings have taken the lead. But the very next day, she might suddenly pull back and become distant or short. This sudden retreat isn't a sign that her interest has vanished. It is a sign of emotional conflict. She likely feels she gave away too much the day before and is now overcorrecting to regain control over her feelings and reestablish her boundaries. Understanding this shift is crucial because it changes how you interpret her silence. When she goes cold, it is often a defensive maneuver meant to slow things down because the pace of the attraction is making her feel vulnerable. She is essentially testing her own self-control just as much as she is testing your reaction. Instead of seeing this as a rejection, recognize it as a high-stakes psychological tug-of-war. She is trying to balance her intense desire to connect with you against her instinct to stay guarded, and that friction is exactly what causes the erratic, calculated nature of her communication. So, what is the correct move when you recognize these signs of hidden attraction? This is the exact moment where most men fail the test. When they encounter the cold version of a woman, their survival instinct kicks in, and they start to chase. They send more texts, ask what's wrong, or try to force a warm reaction out of her. This is a massive mistake because it validates her fear that the situation is becoming unstable. By chasing, you prove that she can dictate your mood with her distance, which actually makes her retreat even further to regain her sense of safety. The real secret to breaking through is to remain emotionally steady. This means that when she goes cold, you stay neutral. You don't get angry, you don't get anxious, and you don't demand an explanation. You simply continue being the same high-value man you were when she was being warm. The man who remains unreactive to her emotional shifts is the one who eventually wins her trust and her heart. When she teases you or tries to poke at your composure with sarcasm, you don't get defensive. You simply laugh it off and keep the vibe light. By doing this, you are sending a powerful, unspoken message. You are a grounded force that her internal storms cannot shake. You are showing her that your confidence isn't dependent on her validation, and that you are stable enough to handle her complexity without losing your own balance. Ultimately, this consistency is what causes her defensive walls to crumble. When she realizes that she can't scare you off with her distance or rattle you with her hot and cold behavior, her fear begins to dissipate. She starts to feel that it is finally safe to be vulnerable with you because you've proven you can handle the weight of her emotions. By staying steady while she is inconsistent, you become the emotional anchor she's been looking for, and she will eventually stop fighting her feelings and start following them toward you. Navigating the hot and cold game can be incredibly exhausting and mentally draining if you don't have the right perspective. But the moment you recognize it for what it truly is, a mask for deep attraction, it shifts from a source of frustration to your greatest advantage. Once you understand that her distance is often a sign of her own internal struggle, you no longer feel the need to react with anxiety or doubt. You can move forward with the quiet confidence of a man who knows exactly what is happening behind the scenes. This knowledge allows you to stay calm while others would panic, and that composure is exactly what will eventually draw her out of her shell. Think back on your own life. Have you ever been in a situation where a woman acted cold or uninterested, only to admit months later that she was actually terrified of how much she liked you at the start? It is a much more common experience than most men realize, and hearing those stories helps everyone see the patterns more clearly. I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and share your experience with a woman who fought her feelings before finally giving in. Your story could be the exact aha moment another guy needs to hear right now. If you found this breakdown helpful and you want to sharpen your understanding of human behavior, make sure to hit the subscribe button. We are going to continue doing these deep dives into the psychology of attraction, high-level confidence, and emotional mastery so that you never have to feel confused by mixed signals again. By mastering these psychological cues, you stop playing the guessing game and start leading the dynamic with clarity and purpose.